Welcome back, friends, to another The City of Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video. Lids87 here, and today I am bringing you guys another Are They Worth It video. A series where I go over characters on upcoming banners to see if they are worth your precious tickets and or gems. Before I get into it though, friends, please remember to hit that like and subscribe button. And shoutouts where shoutouts are due. So to Rem's Database, to the Materia Bot, and to the City of Final Fantasy Opera Compendium. I will be leaving all those links down below in the description if you would like to use those resources for yourself. So on November 6th, UTC time, we're going to be getting the Power of Tranquility Lost Chapter, and that is going to bring back 8. Now, according to this slide, for 8's banner, we will have one free multi-draw, so keep that in mind as you could potentially pick up his gear for free. Talking about his gear, 8 will be receiving an LD weapon. Now, Warrior of Light is featured on this banner. His burst weapon is featured on here, along with Quistis, King, and 8's EX weapon also. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the guy. Let's go ahead and talk about 8 to see what he's going to be bringing back to the table and what he will be receiving in the game. Now, those of you not familiar with 8, 8 is a physical type melee evasion attacker with counters built into his kit. He will be receiving a new LD weapon along with a 7-star armor. Now, if you're already familiar with 8, if you don't want to see the recap, there will be timestamps down below in the comments where you guys can't skip ahead where I talk about his LD and 7-star armor. For those, I will see you there. Everybody else, let's go ahead and recap what 8 actually does. So with his first skill, Quick Bolt Stance, he will grant himself Quick Bolt. Now going forward, I am going to do my best to include the Brave Potencies if I can find them, because this is going to be very important in the Lufenia era, just to let you guys know how hard a character can hit. Now with Quick Bolt Stance, he has 120% potency per brave hit. Now with 8's buff, Quick Bolt, which he grants himself for 8 turns, and this is assuming you have all his passives, all his boards, everything. This will grant him plus 30% to max brave and speed, and plus 40% to attack, and his brave attack and HP attack upgrade to their plus versions. His second ability, Last Stand Rush, with the brave potencies being at 100% for the brave hits, will grant him Last Stand for 8 turns, and this will grant him plus 90% to attack, plus 90% to max brave, plus 40% to HP damage taken, and plus 40% brave damage taken. 8 is a glass cannon, but his EX buff will help him out in terms of survivability, and we'll talk about that as soon as we talk about his EX weapon. Now, 8 gets interesting when both of his buffs are active at the same time, Last Stance and Quick Bolt. What this is going to do is this will upgrade his HP attack or HP attack plus into Lightspeed Jab. So Lightspeed Jab on its own, it's not that exciting, but it becomes exciting when you break a target or attack a broken target with Brave Attack Plus. What this is going to do is this will upgrade Lightspeed Jab into Lightspeed Jab Plus. Now when you attack an enemy, this will extend his current buffs by 1, so letting him hold on to his buffs just for a little bit longer, and this will also give him a free turn with no action delay. So you are going to primarily be doing this for the entire fight. As outside from his EX ability buff, from his LD buff, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be attacking the enemy with Brave Attack Plus, either breaking them or attacking a broken target. So on the following turn, you can use Lightspeed Jab Plus. Now, I like Lightspeed Jab Plus because this allows 8 to dump out any gained Brave that he has. If you have a massive Brave battery onto your party, dump out that Brave. He gets to act immediately for free, allowing you to either follow up with another Brave Attack Plus or use any of his abilities to recharge his EX gauge so he could get his EX buff, which allows him to evade attacks heading 8's way. Alright, friends, so you're going to be doing this for a huge majority of the fight. Brave Attack Plus into Lightspeed Jab Plus, and juggling back and forth while keeping an eye on your buffs so he has access to Lightspeed Jab Plus. Now with his EX ability, which Brave Potency is at 80% with 6 Brave hits, now this will grant him Phantom Rush for 2 turns. Now what Phantom Rush is going to do for 8, this will give him 100% evasion, and this will counter with Break Sight Blow after a successful evade. So with the counter, the Brave Potencies is at 40% and 20%. It varies back and forth between the both of them, and the Brave hits for this will ignore defense. But keep in mind, defense and Brave damage reduction is 2 totally different things, and that goes more into play when we talk about Lufenia. And another great thing about 8 with his EX weapon is that when you take him to at least EX plus 2 out of 3, at the start of the quest, he gains access to Phantom Rush and Quick Bolt. So he gets to evade right off the bat, and he gains access to one of his abilities. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using his second ability, Last Stand Rush, to gain access to Last Stand. So now you can start alternating between his Brave Attack Plus and Lightspeed Jab Plus. And this is also great too, because when the quest starts and if the enemy is automatically targeting 8, you don't have to worry about using either of his abilities or having 0 brave on him, and he's going to counter, potentially killing off the first wave if they're all targeting 8. So keep in mind, friends, with 8's Phantom Rush buff, he has to evade an attack in order for him to counter with this. Now, after you max out 8's EX weapon, he actually has a very handy bonus sphere that is perfect for him or any other type of units that have evade built into their kit. So after a successful evade, this will raise the wielder's attack by 20% by 3 turns. Now, Phantom Rush does have 2 uses, but there are ways you can extend it, and the primary way is by using his additional ability. This will extend all current buffs duration by 2 turns. So if his Phantom Rush buff is about to run out, use his additional ability just to buy yourself more time if you still need his EX gauge to fill up. Okay, friends, time to talk about his LD Explosive Fist. Now, the Brave potency for the Brave hits is going to be at 90%. Now, what this is going to do also, this is going to target lock all the freaking enemies on the field. Now, this is perfect for 8 because before it was up to RNG depending on who your enemies attack. Because if they don't attack 8 with his EX buff Phantom Rush and he doesn't evade, he is not going to counter. There goes his primary damage, because a lot of his damage is going to come from his counters. Being able to target lock all the enemies onto himself forces them to attack him, forcing him to evade, and then forcing him to counter, letting him dish out that beautiful damage. Now, what his LD is also going to do for them, this will grant him a buff called Defense. It's not Defense Up, it's not that buff. It's a framed buff on 8 called Defense for 6 turns. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to increase his attack by 20%. This will give him access to a last stand. That means if his HP is greater than 50% of his max HP, he will survive lethal. He will be left with 1 HP, heal him back up, and he can keep doing this. Now, this will also grant him access to another counter into his kit. So this one, he can trigger it by either evading something or receiving any form of damage. Now, this is going to counter with Counter Rush, which its Brave potencies is at 30% per Brave hit. This also ignores defense, but this now has HP splash damage built into the counter. Alright, so if you have Phantom Rush active in defense, 8 will literally follow up with 2 counters on the enemies, one primarily single target and the second one with HP splash. Oh, you're gonna have so much fun taking on easier content with 8. You're gonna shit on chaos content with 8, absolutely. And after you limit break his LD all the way, this will grant him plus 30% to his own attack. Okay, so 8's 7-star armor, he will be receiving one when his Lost Chapter debuts. What this is going to do for 8 is that he will be able to exceed the Brave damage dealt limit, 9,999 by 15%, up to 11,498. Now, mind you, that is just the Brave damage that's going to increase the cap. This by itself does not increase the HP damage dealt. The second part of this will do that for him. So any held Brave and any HP damage dealt can exceed the 99,999 limit by 15%, allowing him to dish out 114,998 HP damage to said target. So if you are a huge Final Fantasy Type 0 fan or you absolutely love 8, then by all means, get this armor. Everybody else, I would say wait for other 7 stars to be introduced, as just going forward in terms of longevity, because 8 has lower potencies with his counter. There will be a point where his Brave damage is very minimal, and so he really can't exceed the cap unless you severely buff up his damage. And also, if you're going to be picking up 8, if you're like a newer player, you're going to be using primarily for chaos content, he's going to do beautifully without his 7-star armor. He's going to be able to beat said content without his 7-star armor. So unless you really like 8, I don't recommend you pick up this armor and save those armor tokens for someone else. Now, what about the cons for 8? Now, outside of target lock, he has no party utility. He does nothing for the party. He is a selfish melee physical evasion counter attacker, right? He will only counter when he himself evades something or he himself takes damage. He does not protect the party from any form of AoE. If there is an AoE attack, your party members will feel it. They'll feel the Brave hits, they'll feel the HP attack. It will be fine, but now you have to start worrying about your party members. Boss is immune to target lock or immune to debuffs. 8's not going to be doing his fullest potential. I know I put to the bench, but that's not primarily true because now it's up to RNG depending on who the boss attacks, or if the boss has a lot of AoE attacks, then that's the saving grace for 8 for said content. But if they're not targeting 8, then his damage is gonna fall off because he really needs that lock, that target lock, to dish out the most damage he can do so both of his counters trigger. Now 8 is a glass cannon with his last stand buff. As you guys saw earlier, it was plus 40% HP damage and brave damage taken. So if a boss has guaranteed hit and it hits 8, and if he is below that 50% HP threshold, 8 is going to die. He's going to take more damage than any other unit, so keep that in mind. He is a glass cannon. And last but not least is that his counters actually have low brave potencies, which over the course of time you will notice it, especially in Lufenia content. Alright friends, now we're at that portion of the video. Are they worth it? Is 8 worth your tickets and or gems? Okay, so first and foremost with 8 is that he is very fun to use to solo chaos content with. I have him built up on the JP side and I was having a lot of fun shading on said content with 8 with his LD weapon. Now some players might be annoyed with his counters, so he has back-to-back counters, so he has 2 counters, and let's say enemy goes, 8 counters twice, then another enemy goes, counters twice, and another enemy goes, counters twice. So the animations, this could extend the time you spent on the content, but I'm telling you guys right now, guys, you will have a lot of fun using 8. Now his LD does fix a lot of the issues that he has had before. A lot of issues, primarily one issue is the fact that it was really up to RNG to let the enemy target 8, because back in the day, or even now, without his LD, is that 8 has to evade an attack. So whether it be AoE or the boss targeting him, he has to evade in order to counter, and with his counters, that is 8's primary way of dealing a lot of damage. So without having the target lock before, it was up to RNG on who the boss was going to attack. With 8's LD, he forces the enemies to attack him, now allowing him to evade said attack if the boss doesn't have guaranteed hit. And now with his LD, he will trigger another counter. So this is going to relieve said pressure from your party members outside of AoE damage, because they're still going to feel the AoE damage. They're still going to feel the AoE brave damage and the AoE HP attacks. But now, since he's forcing the enemies to target him, so he can now do the max amount of damage that he is able to dish out. That in mind, do not pair him up with any form of target lockers on your team, because now you're doing something wrong. You are taking away 8's damage potential. Don't do that, because if you pair him up with Warrior Light and you start target locking the enemies, then you're taking away the damage. Now, of course, if you understand debuffs a little bit better, if you do bring Warrior of Light onto the party because you want to protect your other party members, you target lock the enemies with Warrior Light first, wait a turn or two, and then target lock the enemies with 8. Okay, now you're doing something a little bit better, because now your party members are protected from any form of AoE damage, while 8 is able to dish out his own damage. Be careful going forward into the Lufenia era, and this can be true for some bosses already, is that some bosses will have guaranteed hitting 8 even while his 100% evasion is active. Just dropping his damage potential is now he cannot counter with his EX ability buff, Phantom Rush, because that one reads is that he has to evade an attack in order for him to counter. His LD counter will still trigger, but his Phantom Rush will not counter. And also keep in mind, unless you can severely increase 8's damage potential with the form of Elemental Imperils and Elemental Resist Down, 8 has low brave potencies with his counters, and he will start hitting like a wet noodle as Lufenia goes on. This is going to be true for a lot of characters unless you can severely increase their damage potential. So keep that in mind as we go forward into the Lufenia era. Right now he's fine. He's going to do beautifully right now. But again, as we go on, pair him up with units that are going to increase his damage. And currently in the game, even on the JP side, 8 does not have LD extensions. If those of you not familiar with LD extensions are, it is extension to a character's LD that you receive from a character's boards. It's a new path, and what this can do, it will improve an LD ability or its buff. So for example, with Squall, once he receives his LD extensions, very powerful unit, because this is going to increase the amount of HP damage he deals to targets by 20%. And anytime he does an HP attack, he follows up with Rough Divide, just further increasing his damage. Squall is an absolute monster with his LD extensions, so it is possible that 8 in the near future on the JP side could receive his LD extensions, or maybe they decide to switch it up on the global side, allowing him to get his extensions earlier, so that can see him being used in later Lufenia content. Now, when it comes to using your resources, again, friends, the very first multi-draw will be free, so it is possible you could pick up 8's LD weapon. When it comes to using your own tickets and or gems, I'm going to say this severely varies on what you need or what you like. So if you like the solo content, if you like the solo chaos content, if you like to solo his own Lufenia content, if you are a newer player that needs to do chaos content, or if you have a higher understanding of how damage works or how to increase potencies, then 8 might be for you. Because again, newer players, I'm telling you guys right now, for any type of chaos content, you're gonna have a lot of fun with 8 as long as his damage type is not resisted. Now, if you fall outside of those categories, but you still like what 8 does in general, I'm going to recommend actually waiting for Gao, who is 2 weeks after 8's Lost Chapter debuts. Because 8, he is primarily a selfish evasion attacker. Outside from the lock, he really doesn't provide anything else for your party members. Gao, on the other hand, does. He can enhance your party members with Earth, inflict Earth resist down on the enemies, just further improving your team's damage. He will also be able to deal out 2 counters anytime something happens to your party member. So instead of 8 where something has to happen to him, with Gao, his counters trigger when something happens to your party. And Gao can also Brave Heal and HP Heal, but he is a magic attacker. So if you like what 8 does but are looking for someone who has a little bit more utility or support built into their kit, then I would recommend you wait for Gao, as Gao does have a little bit more longevity compared to 8, and Gao does receive LD extensions in the future. That is it for this video, friends. I want to thank you guys for watching my Are They Worth It covering 8. Be sure to let me know down below in the comments what you guys think about 8 overall, and if you're going to go ham, do you like Final Fantasy Type 0, all that wonderful stuff, down below in the comments. Me personally, outside of the free multi-draw, I will be skipping 8 if I don't get his LD. I'm not going to go ham for 8. Again, I do have 8 on the JP side. I'm telling you guys right now, I promise you, he is fun to use, all right? If you're a newer player, if you like soloing content, he is very fun to use for that reasons alone. But as time went on, as Lufenia went on, at least for me, his damage just it fell off, and there are other characters I would rather you guys pull for outside of 8. All right, so me personally, I will be skipping 8 outside of the free multi-draw. All right, friends. So again, all that wonderful stuff down below in the comments, your overall thoughts, and until next time, friends, good luck and have a good one.